Ever typed a command into your computer and thought, how on earth did we get here? Buckle up, because today's deep dive is a wild ride.
We're talking about software, and get this, we're going all the way back to the beginning.
From those room-filling computers with less power than your smartphone to, well, the apps and AI that practically run our lives today, it's going to be epic.
We're using excerpts from this podcast, from Code to Cloud, and let me tell you, they've dug up some fascinating stuff.
Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to distill how software went from blinking lights in a lab to, well, shaping almost every part of our world.
And you definitely don't need to be a tech whiz to appreciate this.
Exactly. Think about it. Social media, online banking, that food delivery app you used last night.
It all goes back to how software evolved.
Ready to decode the matrix. Let's do it.
Okay, so picture this. It's the 1940s, 1950s. Forget sleek laptops. We've got these massive machines, wires everywhere, vacuum tubes.
I've seen pictures. It's like stepping back in time.
This is where it all starts. These pioneers writing the very first code. And it wasn't in any language you or I would recognize.
Oh, I bet. What was it like? Hieroglyphics?
Kinda. Assembly language, they called it. Imagine having to handcraft instructions for every single thing you wanted the computer to do.
That sounds insanely tedious.
He just doesn't even cover it. Imagine this. You input your code using punch cards.
Punch cards, like actual physical cards.
A couple cards with holes punched in them, yeah. Each pattern of holes represented different data, debugging your code.
You mean like finding the errors?
Yep, finding the error, and then what do you think? You had to physically punch a whole new card.
Talk about a frustrating delete key.
Right. But here's the thing that blows my mind. Those punch card pioneers weren't just focused on the hardware. They were laying the foundation for software as a field in itself.
So it wasn't just about building the machine, but teaching it to think, in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That you could instruct a machine, tell it what to do with lines of code. That was the revolutionary idea they were building.
It's like they invented the language of computers from scratch.
Pretty much. And look how far we've come since then.
It's mind-boggling. So we've got these giant machines, punch cards, assembly language. How do we go from that to, computers for everyone?
That's where the 1980s come in. This is when software starts to become a product, something for everyone, not just scientists in a lab.
Right. Personal computers, right?
Bingo. Companies like IBM, Apple, they come along and it's like, boom, computers designed for regular people.
It's hard to imagine how different that must felt at the time.
Totally. But the key shift here is that the focus moves from just does it work to is it easy to use? User-friendliness becomes a thing.
Right, because before that, you had to practically be a programmer just to turn the darn thing on.
Pretty much. So remember the first time you used a mouse to click an icon instead of typing out a command?
Oh, yeah. Game changer.
Right. That's the graphical user interface, the GUI. Software goes from something only specialists mess with to something, well, kind of intuitive.
It's like instead of getting a map with no street names on it, you finally get the real deal. Makes it impossible to get lost.
Exactly. GI made computers understandable.
And this whole user-friendly thing, that must blown open the possibilities of what software could do, right?
Totally. And it happens right alongside another massive shift. The rise of the internet in the 90s. Suddenly, it's not just you and your computer. You're connected to, well, everything.
The internet. Talk about a game changer. It's hard to imagine life without it now.
Right. And all those early websites, the first web apps, that explosion of data from millions of users, it's a lot to handle.
It's like the whole world suddenly wants to have a conversation all at the same time. No wonder it changed everything.
Exactly. And that need to handle all that data, all those connections, that's what planted the seeds for cloud computing, which we'll get into later.
Okay, so one groundbreaking innovation after another. But before we jump ahead to the cloud, there's another big piece of the puzzle we have to talk about. Open source software. It's not just a tech thing, it's a whole philosophy.
Totally. Imagine if every piece of software, every app, every website was locked away, totally proprietary, only the company that made it could touch it.
I mean, that sounds like kind of a nightmare. Software development would be totally stifled, right?
It'd be a completely different world. But that's where open source comes in. Projects like Linux, the Apache web servers, like, hey, let's build this together out in the open.
It's like the difference between hoarding all your knowledge and sharing it with the world.
Exactly. Open source is all about transparency, collaboration. You've got developers all over the planet building on each other's work. It's like the ultimate, two heads are better than one.
And that approach, that's what built the backbone of the internet as we know it.
Wow, you got it. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a developer in this new world, right? The internet is exploding, you've got millions of people using your software, and they expect it to work flawlessly, 24/7.
No pressure. So how do you even keep up with that? The old ways of doing things wouldn't cut it, I imagine.
Not even close. It's like trying to conduct a symphony orchestra when everyone's playing a different tune. That's where Agile and DevOps step onto the stage.
Okay, I've heard those terms thrown around a lot. What exactly are we talking about here?
So imagine building a skyscraper, but instead of the whole thing at once, you build floor by floor, constantly checking if it's stable, getting feedback, adjusting as you go.
That makes way more sense than just hoping it all works out at the end.
Right. That's Agile in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Quick iterations, feedback, flexibility. And to bridge the gap between the developers coding away and the teams making sure it all runs smoothly.
We've got DevOps.
DevOps, you got it. It's about making the entire process, from writing code to getting it out there for people to use, as smooth as possible. Efficiency, reliability, constant improvement.
It's like a well-oiled machine, everyone working together in sync.
Exactly. And this brings us to what might be the defining shift of recent decades, the cloud revolution.
The cloud. Okay, we hear that word everywhere. What does it actually mean in the world of software?
Think of it like this. Back in the day, if you wanted to run a website, you needed your own servers, right? Big, expensive machines.
I've seen pictures. Those server rooms are intense.
Right. But with cloud computing, it's like plugging into a global power grid of computing power, storage, all those resources available whenever you need them. Instead of your own server room, you're tapping into this massive shared one.
So instead of building your own power plant, you're just plugging into the grid. That
Yeah.
makes so much more sense.
It's a total game changer for flexibility and scale. And the software itself had to adapt to work in this new cloud environment, which is where microservices come into play.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Microservices. Hit me with it.
Imagine you're building a car, but instead of one giant engine, you've got a bunch of smaller engines all working together, each with its own specific job.
Like one for speed, one for fuel efficiency, one for off-roading.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Right. That's the basic idea. These microservices, they can be updated, scaled, even replaced independently without messing with the whole system. It's like Lego blocks. You can rearrange them, swap them out, whatever you need.
Talk about adaptable and future-proof. Microservices. The cloud. It's like software development went from building houses to designing entire cities.
It was a huge leap. Developers could build more complex, more scalable applications than ever before. And it sets the stage for where we are now, with AI and machine learning becoming central to the whole software world.
Okay, yeah, AI is everywhere. Self-driving cars, personalized recommendations. It's wild.
It's not just hype. AI is actually changing how we write software. Imagine tools that help you code, spot errors before they happen, even optimize your designs.
Wait, AI can write code now.
In a way, yeah. There are AI-powered tools that can generate basic code snippets, identify potential bugs. It's still early days, but the potential is huge.
So AI is like this coding buddy looking over your shoulder, helping out.
In a way, yeah. But, and this is a big but, AI tools are only as good as the data they learn from, right? And the humans who create and use them.
That's a really good point. It's not like AI's got this independent moral compass or anything.
Exactly. So yeah, AI can help us write code, find bugs, but it's still on us humans to steer the ship, make sure things are ethical. Ultimately, we decide how this tech is used.
It's not replacing human developers anytime soon, that's for sure.
Not even close. Software development is about creativity, problem solving, understanding what people need. You can't automate that.
Wow, so we went from punch cards and, was it assembly language?
Yeah.
To cloud computing and AI coding buddies.
It's been a wild ride.
It really has. But one thing's clear. Software development has always been about pushing boundaries.
Finding new ways to solve new problems, constantly evolving, that's what makes it so exciting.
Totally agree. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
Next time you're using an app, browsing a website, whatever, take a second to think about the journey it took for that software to get there. From those early pioneers wrestling with punch cards to today's developers using AI. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. It's like this testament to human ingenuity, this constant drive to create, innovate, build the future. And that future, who knows what incredible software is still to come.
Now that's something to ponder.
It definitely is. Thanks for joining us on this amazing deep dive into the world of software development.